Hello, everybody. Welcome on the Lights on Data show. Today, we're going to talk about direct mail. Yes, you heard me right. Direct mail. It's not the dinosaur that you thought it was. So, today, Dave Fink here, the founder and CEO of Postie, really thinks that the best kept secret in marketing is hiding where you least expect it, in your mailbox. Dave, welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's one of my favorite topics.
Mine as well. I'm really curious to learn more about the data behind direct mail and how it really is proving to be a success for so many companies. You have over 20 plus years of experience in your career. You've generated hundreds of millions of dollars in ad revenue. You powered viral sensations like the Dollar Shave Club. And I love the Dollar Shave Club. I think their ads are just fantastic, by the way. You've helped to launch celebrity startups for Jessica Simpson, Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, Kate Bosworth, just to name a few. And now, as the founder and CEO of Postie, you're out to reinvent direct mail marketing for the digital world.
That's right. It's pretty fascinating to hear you kind of list out all the different businesses and chapters of my career. It has been a few years at this point, which is sometimes exciting, sometimes depressing to think about. Getting older, but I've been super fortunate, and I started my career in the very late '90s, kind of the age of coming online, and lived through the excitement around as a marketer being able to leverage data, direct relationships with consumers, insights in order to get smarter, to understand, what was, driving our business, what wasn't driving our business, allowed us to kind of move into this test and optimization world, starting with hypotheses, putting things out in the world, capturing, measurement, leveraging analytics and data visualization. And for the first decade and a half, almost 2 decades of my career, there was maybe even a little bit of arrogance around this idea of it's the internet. This is it's all digital. Digital is what gives us the ability to access data, to build predictive modeling into all of our media spend and growth budgets, and that is true. There's no question that having that direct-to-consumer relationship and the digital pipe set up allows us to capture data. The invention of machine learning, acceleration of it that we've seen over the last decade allows us to process data very quickly, ask deep, meaningful questions and get responses very quickly. But what I also lived through, and Dollar Shave Club was a perfect kind of time period. That was roughly 2011 through 2016 or so, from launch to billion-dollar acquisition. Dollar Shave Club came online at the very beginning of Facebook and YouTube's run up to fame. There certainly were big channels and big user bases, but the sophistication of their advertising tools, marketing tools, were limited, and then became very sophisticated and became very performant. And then those channels became very saturated. And so ad rates, started going, up and up and up and up. And the ceiling of what you could do and rely on those channels for started coming down and down and down and down. And that was kind of the path that led us to direct mail, which was this idea of, okay, we've learned a lot over the last 20 years and how to, tell stories, how to leverage test and optimization, media strategies, how to leverage data. And just migrate more into a quantitative world of marketing. The ad rates and the costs are driving our unit economics out of whack and sourcing new customers and compared to lifetime value. And so we spent a lot of time thinking about what are the next channels that we can apply these data-driven principles.
And it's not just the saturation, right, of those channels themselves, but also the new data privacy that comes into play and has an impact. Like we've definitely seen it with GDPR, of course, and everything that's related to that, but also with Facebook and how when the Apple iOS had the update and it could not really allow the same traction for Facebook as a result, and that really maybe was the beginning of maybe the end. We'll see how that's going to go for Facebook. We're seeing with Twitter now that's dropping, well, for different reasons, but still we're seeing different external challenges that are impacting these channels too.
No, it's true that, I mean, there's so many ways to go with this conversation. Cross device, was a huge advantage that Facebook had for, and Google as well for, a number of years, and now there's this battle between Google and Facebook and control of user data and identity and whatnot. That we saw kind of the first, maybe just the head poking up on what the world could look like from a performance perspective. If Google does deprecate the cookie, as they've been threatening, or when they do. We saw that in iOS 14's rollout, just kind of how losing the ability to bring data across device affects performance. And we had many advertisers whose Facebook budget went to zero overnight. And not because they still couldn't advertise, but because they were so reliant on Facebook's algorithms, their lookalike models, being able to retarget cross device and feel confident in the performance because of measurement. And that disappeared, and then they were able to kind of work their way back in. But we had clients that picked the phone on that first Monday and called us absolutely freaked out. Multi-million-dollar a month media budgets just disappeared.
Yep.
So you're right. And kind of to rewind a little bit and talk about how we end up in direct mail. We ended up in direct mail just because we were looking for other digital channels that were big and scalable, and that could offset some of the lost potential of Facebook when the first problem was just supply and demand. It was just oversaturation, and we couldn't find anything, quite frankly. You mentioned some of these platforms earlier, but Snapchat was a thing, but didn't have an ads platform at that time. TikTok was still dance bite. It didn't even exist. Twitter was never really a great ads platform for kind of the general advertiser, certainly for consumer advertising. And so we started looking for channels that could leverage data, had big scale and reach, had the ability to run clean measurement, all those tenets that we needed and came to rely on digital. And direct mail has all those same capabilities. It just didn't have a bunch of software. And so I think all of a sudden you layer software and automation on top of a channel that's already scalable, has a ton of consumer data that can be used for prediction and modeling and optimization, and you close the loop on real-time measurement. Doesn't look any different than programmatic or social or search.
Yeah. So it's great to hear about the last part, its relation to data, because I feel so many companies, when they're doing direct mail, the way they do it is, okay, we know there's so many households within this area. We're going to send everybody a pamphlet. We're going to send everybody a catalog. I'm getting the Home Depot catalogs, and each one of my neighbors is also getting it. They're probably, getting some traction there, but it's sort of like trying to, I don't know, hit a rock at a lake and see what hits. Sort of, it's not really directed. It's not really based on data, right? It's not customizable to the needs of that potential consumer. So how would that be different then when we add data into the mix?
Sure. Well, think about like the early and mid 2000s and digital, display advertising. Certainly before Facebook, lookalike, models rolled out. The way advertising was bought was, through RFPs and buying 300, 250, ads above, above the fold, or 3 pages deep, or run of site, or run a network. I mean, that's, we were signing these insertion orders and we were buying media very similar to how we were buying TV. It was this general demographic engages with Yahoo or weather.com or AOL or Washington Post. And, this is what our CPM is. And this is, what we'll throw in for free if you make this commitment to premium placements. And it really was run a network, and you were buying based on, overarching demographics, maybe done through survey data and whatnot. When you move to programmatic, and then eventually social, the type of data that was being shared with platforms like Facebook and Google in particular, getting conversion tracking all over the web and being able to bring in transaction level data on the specific SKU, even certainly the retailer or e-tailer that purchase is taking place on. All of a sudden, you have these big, these tremendous data lakes, and now all of a sudden it's one-to-one marketing, right? It's addressable marketing. It's not that I'm looking to target females in suburban America between the ages of 18 and 39 who are making $50,000 to $90,000 a year. Like that's how TV was bought. That's how digital used to be bought. All the programmatic capabilities allowed us to start using our first party data to build models on these platforms so that we're targeting people that look most similar to high lifetime value customers, high AAV customers, et cetera. And that unlocked a different level of performance. I mean, I think that's one of the two biggest reasons why we saw just the explosion of consumer brands over the last decade, is because it was possible to go and scale a business, in 10 times faster than it ever was before, because we could be addressable in our media and we could push big scale. The other, I think, is social content and brand, development and storytelling. We can do that on a different podcast. So with, our aim at Postie is unlocking those same addressable capabilities. So instead of, canvassing specific neighborhoods based on general demographics or going and sourcing lists, like direct mail used to be done. You'd go and buy a publisher's list, and whoever's on the list, you paid a mail, and you figured they had a general demographic. It was Better Homes and Garden magazine subscriber list, like Chant and your Home Depot, like probably a decent fit to advertise, landscaping, items and whatnot. And that type of advertising, it's a bit more spray and pray. But direct mail, because you're targeting individuals living in specific households where there is that third-party data available, just as deep as you can access on Facebook and Google. Transaction level data, makeup of household, occupation, demographic, interest, psychosocial, all that data exists. Why not put that to work for you? And how do you put that to work? By leveraging machine learning and using your first party data and what you've worked so hard to build and know about your consumer segments in order to make better decisions on where to allocate budget, how to talk and communicate with those individuals based on the likely interest in your brand. And so that's how, what we do day in, day out. It's about marketing objective. It's about understanding your existing customers. It's about how you enable addressable strategies to go out and expand your marketing to reach more individuals that look like those high yielding customers, and how do you talk to them effectively?
So you work with companies to first maybe leverage their own CRM and database to better target their existing customers. That's one, but also for them to increase their reach and just gather more prospects, more customers too.
That's right. Direct mail is a channel that works full funnel. So, we think about the funnel as three core steps, right? There's top of funnel acquisition and prospecting, and net new customers. There's, the bottom of the funnel, which is CRM. It could be lapsed customer re-engagement or expanding lifetime value, increasing, frequency, decreasing interval between purchase. And then there's that mid funnel stuff, right? That we, I think in digital, kind of lump all together as retargeting, but it's really programmatic. It's we've worked so hard to build this direct relationship with consumers on our website, our mobile app, and we're capturing insights into how they're behaving with content, product pages, video, et cetera. Let's figure out how to unlock the value of all of that knowledge. And so exactly as you said, with CRM, you have this data already. Let's figure out ways to grow our business most efficiently. And the number one way to do that is by driving, stronger communication to affect the way that existing customers engage with our brands. It's move our way up funnel and say, hey, we spent all this time and energy building out these digital assets. We're capturing data on every single session. How do we put that data to work to maximize the conversion from someone that we've worked to drive some awareness on? And then the top of funnel is that's the hard one. There's this whole world out there. How do we make budget decisions and messaging decisions based on what we know about, the type of customers that we think will be most responsive, and if they do convert, behave most similarly to existing segments. And we have all that data already. So why not leverage that in a predictive way?
Well, let's talk a couple of examples. So at the top of the funnel, I know one of the examples I was reading on. One of the clients you worked with is this Italian restaurant chain, Buca di Beppo.
Buca di Beppo, yeah.
Buca di Beppo, and it's gained 20,000 new customers over a 3-month period with the help of Postie. That's huge.
Incredible. And look, and the reason that they were able to leverage direct mail is because they did a lot of other core marketing things right. Starting with data collection, right? So they're a retailer. They don't have the same advantage as an e-tailer does, where every conversion is taking place on a website. All that data is immediately, identity data is going directly into a database, and they know a little bit about every single customer that engages with their brand. A typical retailer or restaurant doesn't necessarily capture that data if they're not actively thinking about how to do so. And the most direct path that both retailers and restaurants are kind of leveraging to close the loop on data is VIP loyalty or rewards programs. So it's offering something in exchange for sharing information about who they are, so that you can tailor the experience, the messaging, the follow-up, the communication, to provide more value to the customer and make your marketing more effective. And so it starts with having those data pipes and being able to close the loop on transaction. And so, a brand like like Buca has a big rewards program. And so when we started engaging with them, we got excited right out of the gate when we looked at kind of the wealth of data that they had access to, and we could start mapping that to specific use cases in direct mail. I think we just kind of like, we started geeking out together, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, there's 14 ideas on a whiteboard, and you start thinking about the channel differently than maybe engaging with a traditional printer and thinking in terms of paper and sourcing a list and treating everyone in your database the exact same way. Like, let's actually go deep down that marketing strategy rabbit hole and think about what we're trying to accomplish, and then let's come up with the set of strategies that we think we should start testing. Let's capture results from it. Let's see where we were right and where we were wrong. And then let's make better decisions a couple of weeks later. And it's rinse and repeat for weeks and months and years. That drives scale, that drives efficiency.
Awesome. Well, let's bring another example. And that this is for a company that had a CRM cross-selling campaign. And I'm talking about MeUndies. And with them, they've seen over 1,000% return on advertisement spent. That's again incredible.
Yeah, direct consumer brands have a distinct advantage in that every transaction is a measurable action, right? And so when you think about the knowledge that even a small D2C brand, a nascent D2C brand, someone that's been in business for 3-4 years, 2-3 years even, has on their customer, it's such an advantage over the way that businesses used to be built, where it was just, you were hoping someone would walk by your store because your real estate was in a good location. They'd come in, and then you rely on the salesperson to build a relationship and try and close a transaction. With MeUndies, by the time they started thinking about expanding outside of channels like Facebook and search and email, they were sitting on a treasure trove of data. They were sitting on consumer base that was built around brand loyalists and engagement driven by influencer marketing and in-world awareness, things that build that emotional connection, that motor on their brand. So when they started thinking about how do we leverage that data in order to increase profitability, the natural place to look is saying, hey, we're sitting on consumer data. These individuals have already tried our product. They have a very premium product. It's not the most inexpensive, underwear, but it's extraordinarily high quality. And every incremental transaction that they drive gives them the opportunity to drive profitability. When you have to, you're a business that scales based on just pure new customer acquisition, that gets expensive fast. But when you start building retention and you start training consumer behavior, something magical happens. And I can't remember the I think it was one of the on-demand food delivery brands that we worked with. They had this term they called the magic moment. And they had found out that I may be not getting the exact facts right, but the general concept is there, which is that I think it was 3 to 1. If they can get a third transaction within a set number of months from every new customer, that magic moment takes place and the lifetime value of that customer increases tremendously. So for them, like, and MeUndies is no different. That the question then becomes like, well, what are all the tools in our tool belt that we could leverage efficiently in order to engage our existing customers and drive towards that magic moment, drive that repeat purchase, drive that upsell purchase, get them to become a brand loyalist. So when they think about, in this case, purchasing, underwear, they're thinking about MeUndies. They're not thinking about going and starting their search at the very beginning and typing into Google search, or today asking Chat GPT-4, what underwear to buy.
I wonder, and I guess it depends maybe on the company, the brand, and what they're trying to sell. But would you say that maybe they want to have a first direct impact via mail, the traditional direct marketing technique, but then try and convert that customer or potential customer towards more of a digital communication, so they would spend a little bit less on their acquisition or their retention?
I think that you have to engage in omnichannel from as early a period as possible, and you have to do it for a couple of reasons. One, because I don't think there's this one size fits all holy grail of marketing where if I just do this, it'll always work.
Right.
2, we know that things changed. The way that consumers, behave changed. For a while, we thought Facebook was infallible. We thought Google was infallible. I think we're in this really interesting place where we're seeing, these super, human platforms, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, who was, the wonderkin for, a decade and a half. And we thought just Facebook was never going to go away. Like these companies are wounded. There's no guarantee that Facebook's not the next AOL, the next MySpace, etc. And there's no guarantee that Google, remains dominant forever and ever. We'll see what happens with some of this, AI, natural language, engagement that OpenAI is kind of teaching us maybe the future and how we engage with our laptops and websites and whatnot and in databases. You have to constantly out there testing and developing expertise through multiple channels, and you have to be aware of the various channels that your consumers are engaging with. And they own, everyone that lives in a house, an apartment, townhouse has a mailbox, and the experience of engaging with something tangible is still very valuable. Some people choose to read on Kindle. Some people choose to, order from Amazon or go to a local bookstore. And those that are really into consuming content do all three. And so they're learning everywhere. They're engaging with brands everywhere. Billboards still work. Linear TV still works. Addressable TV works. Traditional out of home, digital out of home works. The key is how do you figure out how to allocate budget in the most effective way? And depending on your brand, the category, the average order value, where you are in your brand awareness cycle will oftentimes determine a lot of where that spend should go. But to answer your question directly, I just, we've seen that including direct mail into your marketing mix drives incrementality across the board. So I don't think it's a game of, use direct mail just as an acquisition tool and then rely solely on email. I just don't think that's the winning recipe. Similarly, I don't think you rely just on Facebook for acquisition and then move to direct mail for retention. I think it's got to be a mix.
Yeah. So there's no denying, I think, that COVID has an impact, had an impact on how we now work and play and live and shop, undeniably. I remember, at least during the lockdowns, we were starting to get more and more mail at one point, and
Interesting.
at least towards the end of the stretch. And we were happy. We were happy to actually receive a physical piece of paper that we could open and go through. And it's like, oh my God, okay, it's something more tangible. I'm sick of all this digital interaction that we kept on having. Did Posty notice a change maybe in that demand and the response from the customer as well from getting the direct mail?
It's a fair question. I think it was very vertical dependent, and I don't know that we thought about it so much as um, direct mail as a channel is becoming more effective than before. I mean, we just always seen it as a highly effective, highly efficient channel when executed correctly. What we did see is that there were certain verticals that just exploded and almost didn't need marketing, right? When you think about, if you were a retailer that sold toilet paper, you didn't need to advertise very much, right? For a while there,
Mhm.
you were doing just fine. And we saw that with meal delivery companies. We saw that with, produce delivery companies, with, the on-demand marketplaces. Like they pulled back their marketing spend because they just didn't need to, and they needed to put more budget into scaling operations at that point and being able to, play the role of hero, which they did very well. Similarly, I think what caught everybody off guard was that consumer demand didn't disappear. We were in such a hot economy, and there was so much stimulus money being flooded into the market that while certainly there were segments, and I'm sure through the world population that suffered more than others, consumer spending in general went up.
Mhm.
It may be pulled back in categories such as travel, hotels, airfare, etc. And then all of a sudden that budget got reallocated in just about every product category you could imagine. And so there was a bit of a land grab. And for a while it was, any category, and any opportunity to acquire customers and compete with your competitors there was a path to positive ROI.
Right.
And we saw that in
Right.
direct mail. But all, Facebook ad rates or ad spend rose, and Google ad spend rose, and email volume rose just because there was this tremendous consumer spending land grab because
Right.
there was the dollars were flowing.
Right. What about the data quality around contact data? I know a lot of companies that are doing direct marketing, they're relying on external companies to clean their customer data, standardize it, make sure they're going to get a lower rate as a result from USPS, kind of post whatever country you're in to deliver your mail. Would Posty recommend for the customer to clean their data? Would Posty help them with that to make sure that the return rate is very low, the open rate is very high?
Yeah, great question. And I think in the pre-posty era of direct mail, like those were things that were always like sold as upsells, and it's called CAS certification, or kind of scrubbing data against the National Change of Address
Hmm.
database, and some of those best practices. It's built into what we do. So the idea, just like with digital, the good platforms are behaving nobly and working hard to ensure data cleanliness. And in our world, that you have to tell the U.S. Postal Service a clean address or something doesn't get delivered. And in our world, we actually get fined our rates and go up, and then we get penalties. So we're fully aligned with the advertiser to ensure the data is clean. On the other hand, it's also all measurable, and so ensuring that we're getting 100% deliverability and the data is as clean as could be just drives performance, and so more likely for an advertiser to see positive results and want to continue investing in the channel. So with regards to data hygiene, it's a requirement for U.S. Postal Service. There's really nowhere to hide. We don't charge for it, just kind of all in the day's work, right? The platform onboards unclean data, cleans it, makes it available to leveraged through direct mail campaigns, cleans it again before it goes on out the back end, and just not something that anybody has to think about anymore.
Well, it's very nice of you because a lot of companies also charge for this extra
For
step.
sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, Dave, any last words? Do you think direct mail is here to stay?
It sure. I sure hope so. Not just for our business, but advertising is really hard.
Yeah.
Marketer's job is just a sea of stress and anxiety. And, whether you're a Facebook ad buyer that's, hitting refresh 1,000 times a day, hoping that your ads, performing the way that you expect it to, or whether you're an email marketer and trying to, execute very complex, robust segmentation strategies. There's just never been more pressure on the marketer, and there's no shortage of tools and channels, and I think CEOs, executive teams, and boards expect marketers to be superhuman these days. Direct mail is a high quality channel. It's a highly performant channel with some innovation tools like Postie out there. It's now become much easier to execute. And I think any tool that we can put in the hand of a marketer to help them drive performance and do so efficiently and help them scale when they find what works is really important. And so, our bet is that a channel like direct mail that is performant will be around for a long time, if not forever. Look, it's written into the U.S. Constitution right now, so mail will get delivered.
Absolutely. Well, I encourage everybody to follow you on LinkedIn, and of course, check out postie.com to see how it can meet your own advertising needs. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.